Michael Jackson was in his dressing room at Madison Square Garden, 30 minutes before showtime, when his assistant handed him a crumpled piece of paper that had been passed through security. Michael almost set it aside with the dozens of other fan letters he received before every show, but something made him unfold it and read. The handwriting was shaky, clearly written by a child, and the words were in braille dots with English translation written underneath by someone else. The letter said, "Dear Michael Jackson, my name is Lucas, and I am 8 years old. I have been blind since I was born. I have never seen your face or your dancing, but my mom says you move like an angel. My eyes cannot see you, but my heart recognizes you. When I listen to your music, I see colors I've never seen before. Tonight, I will be in the audience, and even though I cannot watch you perform, I will feel every moment. Thank you for making a blind boy see. Lucas." Michael Jackson's hands began to tremble as he read the letter. Tears filled his eyes and spilled down his cheeks, ruining the makeup that had just been carefully applied. His assistant reached for tissues, concerned, but Michael waved her away. He read the letter 3 more times, each reading breaking his heart a little more and rebuilding it a little differently. "Find him," Michael said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. "Find Lucas. I need to know exactly where he's sitting. I need to meet him before the show." It was March 5th, 1988, at Madison Square Garden in New York City. Michael Jackson was performing the 3rd night of his Bad World Tour's American leg, and the show had been sold out for months. 72,000 tickets had been purchased, and somewhere in that massive crowd sat an 8-year-old boy who had never seen anything in his entire life. A boy who experienced Michael Jackson not through his eyes, but through something deeper. Lucas William Chun had been born completely blind due to a condition called Leber congenital amaurosis, a genetic disorder that prevented his retinas from developing properly. From the moment he entered the world, Lucas had existed in total darkness. He had no concept of light, no understanding of color, no visual memory of anything. His world was constructed entirely from sound, touch, smell, and an intuitive sense that doctors couldn't quite explain, but that his mother Sarah knew was real. Lucas experienced reality differently than sighted people, and his mother had spent 8 years teaching him that different didn't mean less. Sarah Chun was a music therapist who worked with disabled children at Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan. She was a single mother, raising Lucas alone after her husband had left when Lucas was 2 years old, unable to cope with having a blind son. Sarah had responded to her husband's abandonment by pouring every ounce of her energy into showing Lucas that his blindness wasn't a limitation, but simply a different way of experiencing the world. She exposed him to music constantly, believing that sound could create the visual landscapes that Lucas's eyes couldn't process. Michael Jackson's music had entered their lives when Lucas was 5 years old. Sarah had been playing the Thriller album while cooking dinner one evening when she noticed Lucas standing completely still in the living room, his small body swaying almost imperceptibly. She watched as her son, who usually moved cautiously through the world he couldn't see, began to move with confidence and joy. His hands lifted above his head, his feet began to shuffle, and his face showed an expression Sarah had rarely seen. Pure unfiltered happiness. From that moment forward, Michael Jackson became Lucas's constant companion. He listened to every album dozens of times, memorizing every note, every breath, every subtle sound. But Lucas didn't just hear the music. He experienced it in a way that Sarah struggled to understand but recognized as profound. Lucas would describe colors when he listened to Billie Jean, even though he'd never seen color. He would describe Michael's movements during Beat It, even though he'd never seen dancing. He experienced Michael Jackson synesthetically, his brain translating sound into sensory experiences that created their own form of vision. When Sarah learned that Michael Jackson was coming to Madison Square Garden, she knew she had to find a way to take Lucas. Tickets were expensive, far beyond what she could afford on her therapist's salary, but Sarah did something she'd never done before. She wrote to every radio station, every newspaper, every organization that might help. She explained about Lucas, about his connection to Michael's music, about how a blind 8-year-old boy saw the world through sound. 2 weeks before the concert, a radio station called. They'd been moved by Sarah's letter and wanted to give Lucas tickets as part of their community outreach program. Not just any tickets, but seats in section 103, close enough to the stage that Lucas would feel every vibration, every bass note, every moment. On the night of March 5th, Sarah and Lucas arrived at Madison Square Garden 3 hours early. Lucas was wearing his favorite outfit, clothes his mother had described to him in detail so he could visualize them in his mind. A red jacket like the one Michael wore in Thriller, black pants, and white socks with black shoes. Lucas had insisted on dressing like Michael, even though he'd never seen what Michael actually looked like. He understood Michael through essence rather than appearance. Before they found their seats, Sarah had done something impulsive. She'd written a letter from Lucas to Michael, translating her son's words into both Braille and English, hoping that somehow it might reach him. She'd given it to a security guard who promised nothing but said he'd try to pass it along. Sarah had assumed that was the end of it, that the letter would be thrown away or lost in the pile of fan mail that someone as famous as Michael Jackson must receive constantly. But the letter had made it to Michael's dressing room, and now Michael Jackson was refusing to take the stage until he met the boy who had written it. His tour manager, Frank Dilio, tried to explain that there were 72,000 people waiting, that they were already running behind schedule, that finding one child in that massive crowd would take time they didn't have. Michael's response was firm and non-negotiable. I don't care if we start an hour late. Find Lucas Chun and bring him backstage. I need to meet him before I perform. It took 20 minutes of announcements over the PA system and coordination with security, but eventually Sarah and Lucas were escorted backstage. Lucas held his mother's hand tightly, sensing from the changing acoustics and the way sounds echoed differently that he was somewhere unusual. Sarah's heart was pounding. She had no idea why they'd been summoned, whether Lucas had done something wrong, whether this was real or some kind of mistake. When they were led into Michael Jackson's dressing room, Sarah gasped. Michael was standing in the center of the room, still in his pre-show robe, his face streaked with tears that had ruined his makeup. The moment he saw Lucas, Michael walked directly to the small boy and knelt down to his level. Lucas, Michael said softly, I'm Michael. I got your letter. Lucas's face transformed. His sightless eyes, which usually wandered without focus, seemed to turn toward Michael's voice with uncanny accuracy. You're really here? Lucas whispered, his voice filled with awe. You read my letter? I read your letter, Michael confirmed, his voice breaking. You said that your eyes cannot see me, but your heart recognizes me. Lucas, that's the most beautiful thing anyone has ever said to me. May I hug you? Lucas nodded, and Michael gently pulled the small boy into his arms. Lucas wrapped his arms around Michael's neck and buried his face in Michael's shoulder. He stayed there for a long moment, and when he pulled back, he was crying. You feel exactly like I imagined, Lucas said. Like music feels when it's perfect. Michael was openly sobbing now, no longer caring about his makeup or the schedule or anything except this moment with this extraordinary child. Lucas, Michael said, I want to do something tonight that I've never done before. I want to perform this show for you. Not for the 72,000 other people out there, but for you. And I want you to experience it in a way that honors how you see the world. Michael turned to his musical director and his tour manager, who were standing nearby, and began giving instructions that would completely transform the concert they'd rehearsed for months. Sarah watched in disbelief as Michael Jackson, the biggest star on the planet, redesigned his entire show around her blind son. Michael explained to his team that he wanted additional bass speakers positioned specifically near Lucas's seat, so the boy could feel every beat in his body. He wanted tactile elements added, vibrations that would translate music into physical sensation. He wanted his vocals adjusted so Lucas could hear every nuance, every breath, every subtle inflection. And most radically, Michael wanted to add something to his performance that had never been done before. Verbal descriptions of his movements, woven into the show, so Lucas could understand the visual elements he couldn't see. Before they returned to their seats, Michael had one more request. Lucas, would you mind if I held your hand for a moment and just stood with you? I want to feel what you feel. I want to understand how you experience music. Lucas nodded, and Michael took the boy's small hand in his. Then Michael asked his sound engineer to play Billie Jean at a low volume. As the music filled the dressing room, Michael watched Lucas's face transform. The boy began to sway, his free hand moving through the air as if painting something invisible. His face showed intense concentration, and then something like joy. "What do you see right now?" Michael asked gently. Lucas was quiet for a moment, lost in whatever internal vision the music was creating. "I see purple and silver moving together like water," Lucas said. "And I see you spinning, even though I don't know what spinning looks like. I just know that's what you're doing. Your feet barely touch the ground, like you're part of the music instead of just dancing to it." Michael's breath caught in his throat. Lucas's description was eerily accurate, describing movements and aesthetics the boy had never physically seen. "You're right," Michael whispered. "That's exactly what I do." "How do you know that?" Lucas shrugged, a simple gesture that carried profound meaning. "I don't know how I know. I just feel it. Your music isn't just sound, Mr. Jackson. It's pictures for people who can't see with their eyes." Sarah was crying silently, watching her son connect with his hero in a way she'd never imagined possible. Michael looked at her with an expression that conveyed both joy and heartbreak. "Ma'am, your son has a gift. He experiences art in a way that most people never will. Tonight, I'm going to try to honor that gift." Michael Jackson walked onto the Madison Square Garden stage 45 minutes late, something that had never happened before in his career. But when he took the microphone and addressed the 72,000 waiting fans, nobody complained. "Ladies and gentlemen," Michael said, his voice filled with emotion that the crowd could hear but not yet understand. "Tonight is going to be different from any show I've ever performed. There's someone very special here tonight. His name is Lucas. He's 8 years old, and he's been blind since birth. Before the show, Lucas gave me a letter that said, 'My eyes cannot see you, but my heart recognizes you.'" Michael paused, letting his words sink in. "Tonight, I'm going to perform in a way that honors Lucas and every person who experiences the world differently. I'm going to do something I've never done. I'm going to describe what I'm doing while I'm doing it, so that everyone, regardless of how they see or don't see, can experience this show completely." The crowd erupted in supportive applause, though most people didn't yet understand what Michael meant. Then the music began, and Michael Jackson delivered the most unique performance of his career. As he danced through Smooth Criminal, his voice would occasionally narrate his movements. "I'm leaning forward at an impossible angle, defying gravity, my body a straight line." Between verses of Billie Jean, he would describe the stage, the lights, the way his costume caught the spotlights. "My sequin jacket is catching light and throwing it back to you like stars," he would say. "I'm spinning now, 3 complete rotations, my feet finding the beat before my body does." The sighted audience members found the experience mesmerizing in an unexpected way. Michael's verbal descriptions added a layer of intimacy and awareness to his performance that made them see his artistry differently. They weren't just watching a show anymore. They were experiencing it the way Lucas experienced it, understanding that performance transcends vision. But for Lucas, sitting in section 103 with enhanced speakers surrounding him, the concert was transcendent. He felt every beat in his chest. He heard every breath Michael took. And through Michael's careful descriptions, Lucas built a visual landscape in his mind that was perhaps more vivid than what sighted people saw with their eyes. During The Way You Make Me Feel, Michael did something unprecedented. He stopped singing mid-song and addressed Lucas directly. "Lucas, I know you're out there. I want you to know that right now. I'm dancing just for you. I'm moving the way your letter made me feel. Light and grateful and seen. Thank you for seeing me in a way nobody else ever has." The crowd was silent, 72,000 people holding their breath, understanding they were witnessing something sacred. Then Michael continued the song, but with an intensity and emotion that everyone could feel was different. He wasn't just performing anymore. He was communicating with someone who understood his art in its purest form. After the show, Michael didn't go to his dressing room. He went directly to section 103, still in his costume, still sweating from the performance. He found Lucas and Sarah and sat down beside them in the empty seats. "So," Michael said to Lucas, breathing hard from the exertion of the show, "how did you see it?" Lucas's face was glowing with a joy that made him look incandescent. "It was perfect," Lucas said simply. "When you described the lean and smooth criminal, I could feel gravity letting you go. When you talked about the lights on your jacket, I saw them even though I've never seen light. You didn't just perform for me, Mr. Jackson. You showed me that I'm not missing anything. I just see differently, and that's okay." Michael pulled Lucas into another hug, crying again. "Thank you," he whispered into the boy's hair. "Thank you for teaching me that performance isn't about spectacle. It's about connection. It's about reaching people however they experience the world. You've changed how I think about everything." Michael spent 2 hours with Lucas and Sarah after the show. He asked Lucas dozens of questions about how he experienced music, how he built mental images from sound, what colors meant to someone who'd never seen color. Lucas's answers were profound and often poetic, revealing a mind that processed reality in ways that fascinated Michael. Before they left, Michael made Lucas a promise. "I'm going to make sure that every concert I do from now on includes descriptions for people who can't see the visual elements. You've shown me that accessibility isn't just about making accommodations. It's about recognizing that there are infinite ways to experience art, and all of them are valid." Michael kept that promise. From March 1988 forward, every Michael Jackson concert included audio description services for blind audience members. He worked with accessibility advocates to develop systems that would allow blind fans to experience his performances fully. He funded research into tactile concert experiences, creating technology that would translate music into vibrations and other sensory inputs. But Michael did something else too. He stayed in touch with Lucas Chun. Regular phone calls, letters, visits when Michael was in New York. He sent Lucas every album he released, often before they were available to the public, with personal notes describing the visual elements of the music videos so Lucas could imagine them. He paid for Lucas's education at the Perkins School for the Blind in Massachusetts, one of the premier institutions for blind students in the country. He made sure Lucas had access to every resource he needed to develop his unique gifts. Lucas Chun grew up to become a renowned music therapist and advocate for accessibility in the arts. He completed his doctorate at Berklee College of Music with a dissertation on synesthetic music perception in blind individuals. His work revolutionized understanding of how blind people process music and led to the development of new technologies that make concerts and performances accessible to people with visual impairments. In every interview, in every speech, Lucas tells the story of March 5th, 1988, the night Michael Jackson redesigned an entire concert around an 8-year-old blind boy's experience of the world. "Michael Jackson didn't just perform for me that night," Lucas said in a 2015 TED Talk that has been viewed over 10 million times. "He saw me, not my disability, but my different ability. He recognized that I experience music in a way that's equally valid to how sighted people experience it, just different. And instead of asking me to adapt to his world, he adapted his art to my reality. That's not accommodation. That's recognition. That's love." When Michael Jackson died in 2009, Lucas traveled to Los Angeles for the memorial service. He was 29 years old, a successful therapist, an advocate, a man whose life had been shaped by one extraordinary night and the relationship that grew from it. Lucas was asked to speak at the memorial, and his speech moved everyone present to tears. "Michael Jackson taught me that disability is a concept, not a reality," Lucas said, his sightless eyes directed toward where he knew the audience sat. "I'm not disabled because I'm blind. I'm just differently abled. I experience the world through channels that sighted people often ignore." Michael understood that, and he honored it by changing how he performed, not just for me, but for every person who experiences art differently than the mainstream expects. Lucas paused, composing himself. "Michael used to call me on my birthday every year, and every time he would ask me the same question. Lucas, how are you seeing the world today? Not what are you seeing, but how are you seeing it?" Because Michael understood that seeing isn't just a function of eyes. It's a function of heart, of soul, of perception that transcends physical senses. I may never have seen Michael Jackson's face with my eyes, but I saw him more clearly than most people ever will. I saw his heart. I saw his generosity. I saw his understanding that greatness is measured not by how many people worship you, but by how many people you truly see. The letter that Lucas had written in 1988, the crumpled piece of paper with braille dots and shaky English translation, was found in Michael's bedroom at Neverland Ranch after his death. He had kept it for 21 years, stored in a special box with other precious mementos. On the back of the letter, in Michael's handwriting, was a note dated March 5th, 1988. Today I met Lucas Chun, and he taught me that I've been performing for eyes when I should have been performing for hearts. He sees me better blind than most people see me with perfect vision. From now on, I perform for Lucas. I perform for everyone who experiences the world differently and has been told they're experiencing it wrong. They're not wrong. We are for not recognizing that there are infinite ways to see. The Michael Jackson Lucas Chun Foundation for Accessible Arts was established in 2010, funded by both Michael's estate and Lucas's work. The foundation develops technologies and programs that make performances accessible to people with all types of disabilities. They've created tactile concerts for deaf audience members, audio-described performances for blind audience members, and sensory-friendly shows for people with autism and other conditions that make traditional concerts overwhelming. To date, the foundation has made over 5,000 performances accessible to people who would otherwise be excluded from experiencing live art. Every concert or performance supported by the foundation begins the same way. A recording of Lucas's voice, now mature, but still filled with the wonder of that 8-year-old boy, plays over the speakers. My name is Lucas Chun, and when I was 8 years old, Michael Jackson taught me that I wasn't missing anything. I was just seeing differently. Tonight, we honor that lesson by making sure everyone, regardless of how they experience the world, can access the beauty of this performance. Welcome. The story of Michael Jackson and Lucas Chun teaches us that true artistry isn't about creating beauty that everyone sees the same way. It's about creating beauty that reaches people however they're able to receive it. Michael could have ignored Lucas's letter, could have performed his show the way he'd always performed it, could have treated accessibility as a minor accommodation rather than a fundamental reimagining of what performance means. Instead, he chose to see Lucas, to honor his experience, to recognize that a blind 8-year-old boy understood his art more deeply than most sighted people ever would. In doing so, Michael created a legacy that extended far beyond music. He created a model for how artists should think about their audiences, recognizing diversity not as a challenge to overcome, but as an opportunity to deepen and expand artistic expression. Lucas Chun still attends concerts regularly. He experiences them the way he experienced Michael Jackson that night in 1988, through enhanced sound, through tactile vibrations, through descriptions that paint pictures in his mind. And every time, he remembers the night when the biggest star in the world stopped everything to make sure a blind boy could see. Subscribe now and share this story with someone who experiences the world differently than you do. Tell us in the comments about how you see, hear, or feel things in ways others might not understand. Hit that notification bell for more untold stories about the moments when Michael Jackson proved that true greatness is measured by who you include, not who you exclude. Because sometimes the most important audience member is the one who can't see you with their eyes, but sees you perfectly with their heart. Thank you, Lucas Chun, for teaching Michael Jackson that vision transcends sight. And thank you, Michael, for understanding that the most beautiful performances are the ones that reach people in whatever language they speak, whatever senses they use, whatever way they experience beauty. My eyes cannot see you, but my heart recognizes you. That's not a limitation. That's a gift. And Michael Jackson had the wisdom to recognize it.